The world sure does suck right now, huh? But at least all that omnipresent horribleness hasn't yet managed to smear itself over everything so all-encompassingly that I can't at least still escape into my favorite video games. And now to check and see why Mario Kart trended on Twitter today.
You're all going to pay for this.
The House with a Clock in Its Walls is based on a juvenile mystery fiction novel by John Bellairs and illustrator Edward Gorey, originally published in 1973, that eventually spawned a 12-volume, 35-year spanning series often referred to as a precursor to the likes of Harry Potter, His Dark Materials, and the like. I didn't know that going into the movie, or if I did, I didn't remember knowing it, which is odd because this seems like the kind of thing I would have read the shit out of as a kid, but whatever. But had I not been informed as such, it would have been my immediate assumption anyway, because by now these YA, magical, spooky kid, genre fiction, would-be franchise starter things all kind of have the same aura about them. Precocious kid main actor, overstuffed, way too busy production design, grab bag of better than necessary adult actors taking care of some house payments and trying to look like this isn't beneath them, awkwardly shoehorned modern day comedy because Hollywood producers can only vaguely assume what actual 8-year-olds now find funny, big blowout special effects finales, and a way too long second act where tons of stuff happens that doesn't actually mean anything or matter in the end or contribute to the main theme or character arcs but has to be there because we might end up having to make at least 2 more of these and groundwork must be laid. Other than that, it's okay, I guess. Marginally better than the Spiderwick something or other. Not as good as that one where Ava Green turned into a bird or something and had a crossbow. I think, right? That was one of these, wasn't it? Samuel L. Jackson was eating eyeballs or something. Anyway, this one takes place in the 50s in Michigan, and it's about a kid whose parents die in a car crash, so he has to go live with his weird uncle, played by Jack Black, who lives in a big weird house full of crazy junk, and I guess the reference point is supposed to be that he's like a wacky proto-beatnik because 50s, but actually he's a benevolent warlock working with a good witch played by Cate Blanchett to work out the secret of the infernal clockwork machinery inside the walls of his haunted house that were set in motion by a deceased evil wizard before it finishes counting down to something bad. The kid thinks this is all kind of cool and wants to learn magic himself and help out, but also struggles with fitting in at school, and eventually these plot threads sort of converge in ways that will probably seem surprising enough to people young enough to have only seen 1 or 2 of the other movies exactly like this. Now, there's always also some meta-novelty to the proceedings in these, and in this case it's the presence of one-time shock horror specialist Eli Roth in the director's chair, taking his first swipe at the big studio 4-quadrant franchise scene, now that his last couple projects ever since Hostel 2 have been, wow, yeah, there's a filmography that didn't quite go where we thought it was going to go, huh? And you know, hey, not a bad idea. A lot of the great youth-oriented movies of my generation's youth were made by guys who never originally planned on being children's filmmakers after all. And he does bring a certain horror director confidence to the set pieces once The Walking Dead and Killer Pumpkins and demonic entities start showing up, and he's admirably resistant to shying away from some dark World War II adjacent backstory details involving the main villain and Blanchett's character. Unfortunately, when you take away the button-pushing shock value and gorefest self-indulgence from Roth's toolkit, you're kind of left with fewer things to conceal the fact that he still never really developed solid grasp of narrative flow as a filmmaker. The film is overly episodic with stop-and-go plotting that makes it feel a lot longer than it actually is, and anticlimactic when it finally gets where it's going. The actors certainly pull their weight, particularly the not as heavily advertised genre mainstay who delightfully pops up to be the bad guy. I mean, I didn't see him in any trailers, and I was certainly surprised. Blanchett in particular is working so far above what the material deserves, you almost want to mark her down for being a show-off, like, all right, keep your glove on, Carol. We're already on board. We know you're good in everything. I will say it is kind of distracting that Jack Black's character is written like this broken down, crotchety Wolfman Jack type guy. Ask your grandparents who that was, but he actually looks like he's taking pretty good care of himself these days and kind of young enough to be wrong for the part. But yeah, apart from the adult cast mostly not humiliating themselves, the whole thing is kind of flat apart from when the storytelling gets bad enough to be uneven. As I said, I can't tell you how it works as an adaptation, though learning that the book was reputed for Edward Gorey illustrations, it's kind of a puzzle to me why there isn't more of an attempt to mix his famous style into the visuals. Instead, it just kind of looks like every other movie like this. 2 stars, I left feeling kind of ticked off. Sorry.